Guys, do you know about BRIC, which later became BRICS? It's an not so well organized like NATO countries, but this is an organization of some of the basic members to initiate four of the countries like India, China, Brazil, and later to join this. Some of the six actually more countries have expressed their interest in joining the BRIC, which is offering an alternative to this Western hegemony, and it's like a de-dollar diplomacy by uniting and forging ahead with the business collaborations and business deals. India, China, and South Africa being the host this time. And our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, had visited. He had just come back from there. And Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, that means Global South, 6 more countries have offered to join, and they have been permitted to go ahead with the joining membership. Now, why is it important, and why it's not being liked by the Western countries, especially the USA? The USA, with its dollar prominence and its hegemony in the economic world, as IMF and International Monetary Fund and World Bank, they have been ruling over the economic policies, and NATO being one of the strongest organizations with all the 7 powerful nations of the earth, that's G7. So this BRICS could be a viable alternative to counter and to derail the moves of the pernicious ways the US and the Western countries have a hegemony, and they have dominated over all the business decisions, all the business policies, whether it's liberalization or whether it's WTO, World Trade Organizations. So they always had an upper hand, and this is to derail that sinister move of the USA, England, France, Germany, Italy, those nations which after the Second World War, they have not only swayed the influence, powerful influence, because of technological advancement, the economic gains, and it's like taking the IMF and the world bodies on a ransom, including UN, which has been a toothless tiger so far. So this de-dollarization and having to come up with a unified approach towards having a counter currency that's being mooted, and all of these 11 nations now, they account for almost 41% of the world GDP. And their contribution will be immense as compared to, they can give a fillip to the economic gains. They come out from the trade barriers. The USA has been punitive in its stance of, clamping down with all kinds of sanctions over Iran and African countries as a borrower, largest borrower. And they have been taken for granted as subservient and in slavery, kind of economic in slavery. So South Africa, apart from other countries like Nigeria and Gambia and Botswana and this kind of Sudan, they are trying to be self-reliant and formulate their own economic policies and not to be blackmailed by the USA and those such powerful regimes which have a virtual clout over all the economic gains, and nearly 70% of the country of the world, they are all already on the sanction. Russia, Iran, the 22 decades of Iranian is reeling under the pressure of this sanction. They haven't been able to even produce their own petrol, and also they have borne the brunt of the economic sanction, in the sense that they haven't been able to have their own infrastructure, having to have their own nuclear facilities, even for the peaceful means and constructive purposes. But India has never cared much for those kind of sanctions policies, and India has always tried to keep aloof, non-aligned, and has been serving interests of Russia, the arch rival of the USA, and also has a good trade relation with Germany. All those and Russia, and even this Ukrainian war, where the USA and other countries, the NATO and the European partners, because NATO is all out for expansion. They want this Ukrainian to be a part of the NATO regime as one of the Western countries, and trying to go ahead with the Western model. So this is an attempt, a futile attempt of the USA to keep those countries as colonized and under the trade agreement pressures and under the loans that they call the soft loan. Actually, they are very expensive loans from the IMF body, and also the loans from the world other organizations which have played like a protege and also an ally of those NATO members. Since Russia crumbled and the Warsaw Pact and it's all its satellite nations, they broke away, and they are being wooed into the NATO formation so that they have the military ties. And although this BRICS is not per se military ties or a kind of the platform as NATO works on, because BRICS is all about, with the inception of almost 15 years now, they wanted to have their own trade regulation. They wanted to have internal and mutual dependence, and have to minimize the dependence on the Western so-called advanced nations. They keep always saying no to some of the transfer of technologies, like whether it's like computer chips, whether it's cryogenics engines and all. So India has been really successful in having its own cryogenic engines with its successful mission of this Chandrayaan 3. And Russia has never cared for all those sanctions, and it has come out with its own policies of how to extend its trade and its export of oil and natural gas to those countries that are direly in need of. And India has also been buying it at a much cheaper, relatively cheaper pace, rate, and then it has not cared to fall in the trap of those Western countries. They are all out to punish Russia. They have had long-term sanctions Iran. South African and African countries have always been like a field to be exploited, whether it's their natural resources, whether it's their land forces, or whether it's human forces. So it's really time to de-dollarize and have a second currency which could withstand the pressure or the kind of supremacy or dominance of which has held the world as a captive in one sense. And we have paid so much as ransom to being one of the struggling developing nations. So together these countries abound for 40% of the world resources and world GDP. Why not have another alternative platform to fight back and to have our own rights saved, ensure that we don't have to suffer longer in the hands of these almost imperialist regimes which have still ruled the roost and have left us